Hi, welcome to Base Editing with Daisy. Today we're going to look at making your base work for you and what you need to put in your base to make it work for you. So what I've done here is section off a small room. Just put it, because you don't need a lot of space in your base. You could also section off parts of your base by raising whole sections of the floor. Go to place item, and now I can just fill that in if I want to. So if you want to do it that way, that's great. Or you can, if you have separate rooms or smaller rooms. But the point being, you don't need a lot of space to make your base functional. It doesn't have to be pretty, just has to work. So the tabs you're going to be using on your base editor are going to be mostly these ones here at the very front of the base editor. And I'm just going to start with the workshop area because lots of people want to be able to go to their base and make and store items. That's one of the big advantages of having a base. So I'm going to start with the enhancement table. I'm just going to put that right there. And as soon as I place it, you notice that the trim disappears. This is why I don't like having trim in a base, because it gets to be very uneven. You have to work at either blocking it all out or making sure you don't take up that space so that it disappears. So to get rid of that, just go to Pick Style. Over here on the right, you'll see Floor Trim and Ceiling Trim. I'm going to click on Floor Trim, and the first option is None. Get rid of that floor trim. I'm going to go back to Ceiling Trim. First option again is None, and the ceiling trim goes away. So back to Place Item. Takes me right back to the section I was working in, which is the Tech Workshop. Now let's say I don't really like how this table looks, and often I don't like how things look. I like to change them. So this is very easy because you can access an enhancement table, either arcane or tech versions, from the bottom. So I like to turn them over or even put them in the walls, which I'll show you in one of the bases I will visit. So then you can put all kinds of IOs in that, whatever IOs you want, and you might want to designate it in some way. Like one of my favorite ways to designate things is with the alphabet, and I might go to just put a band of color on there with the letter I, and I had already selected red. You can make this whatever color you want to. You could make it blue or yellow or whatever suits your organization system, but this might be a way I would have of designating a table as a particular type of IO. Maybe it's a basic set, maybe it's an attuned, maybe it's a rare, whatever system I've come up with. So now I'm going to go back to my tech workshop and place the next thing, which would be a salvage rack. These are very important, of course, for storing your salvage, and I find that, well, I don't like how they look, to be honest, and they take up a lot of space. So I like to design my workshops around hiding these, and I might hide them in a variety of ways behind walls. I'll just demonstrate this very quickly with a storage container. The large reinforced storage is just an easy thing to show you. And you notice I have the grid off because it's moving so smoothly. That's because this is a very small adjustment to make. And you want to see how it's almost gone, but you want it to be just barely behind that. And now when I mouse over it, I can still pick out the salvage rack, which means I'm still in the item box, which you can see extends a little bit further out than the item box for the large reinforced storage here, which means I can access it in the base, but of course you'll want to double check this when you get out of the base editing mode. I like to use about 12 storage racks. That would be 8 for commons, and that gives you about 20 of each type of the common salvage, 2 for the uncommons, 1 for the rares, and then 1 for the special salvages like your unslaughters and your converters and catalysts and such. And I usually have then 4 tables of the IOs, and since you're limited to 18 items in your workshop area, that leaves me 2 inspiration collectors, and I might place those near medical. And let me just show you the inspiration collector here, and again, it could be either tech or arcane, but they're both rather large and noisy. And as long as you can touch that center stack in the middle, you can tuck that into a wall a little bit, or something I often like to do is actually put it up on its side and then tuck that back into a wall. As long as you can see and touch that center column. Oh, I put it a little too far and I can't see and touch that center column. So there it is. Once I can touch that center column, I can access the inspirations for that. So you'll also want to put some sort of an invention work table in your area, someplace probably close to your salvage and your storage. You don't have to put a vault in a workroom anymore because players can all access their own vaults from their character under the salvage. It's on the upper left-hand side of that window. Other things you don't need to put in a tech workshop anymore are your the work tables, and they have the basic all the way through the advanced, but we no longer use these to make the personal items we used to add to bases, so you can just leave those off unless you're looking to use them as decoration. But what you do want to put in is the third tier, or the largest of these, the base buff empowerment stations. This one will use tech salvage. If I go over to the arcane workshop, then if I want to have both types available, then I would put an arcane one in there also, and this one uses arcane salvage to give your empowerment buffs, which are different kinds of resistances and increased speeds, and increased perception, and so forth and so on. Now, in the arcane section, and only in the arcane section, you will also find the Pillar of Ice and Flame, which you can use to access Ouroboros missions. Back in the tech workshop, you will find there, and only in the tech workshop, you will find a mission computer, which you can access, say, tip missions and other missions from, and your merit rewards ATM, which, you know, if you've seen them around town, this is where you spend your merits to get like recipes and salvage and all sorts of things, and you can have that in your very own base. Now, the other thing most people want in their base is medical. Now, your medical items, they are going to need some power and control. So to get power and control, you're going to need to go over, and you can see down here on your bar the power and the control, they're flashing red at you. That means, oh, you don't have any power or control, we can't work. So go over here, and you don't need a lot. Just maybe a small generator should be enough to keep your power. And since it's a small room and this is in the way, I'm just going to bury that in the floor. Doesn't matter, still works. Some of your computer items are going to provide your control, and they look cool, so a lot of times I'll use these for decorations, but in this case it's taking a lot of space. Down it goes. Just going to tuck that away. And you'll notice some items have loud sounds, and you can't get rid of these, at least not consistently for everyone. If you're just the only one using your base, there is a way to replace the sound file with some silence or something else. I don't exactly know what that method is, but we're not going to go into that here. So besides your basic reclamator here for your medical, you also, and there are arcane medical versions of this as well as the tech, you want your combat log somewhere, something like this, because you can buy inspirations if you need them from the combat log, and you can also sell to a combat log. The other way you can buy and sell would be, of course, if you got some NPCs for your base. They actually have NPCs that will provide services right here in your base. So go down to NPCs, which is down here about midway through your markers. You can have a trainer in your base. You can have even Icon in your base, spend all day playing with your costumes. You can have a quartermaster. They buy and sell inspirations, enhancements. You can buy and sell from the quartermaster. Well, mostly you can buy inspirations from the nurse or the combat logs. So your nurse, and there's another item in the Robo Fabricator. I think you can buy inspirations from it too. But these are NPCs, and you can put them in your base and access nearly all the services that you can access outside of the base. No, there's no play-to-win vendor. That can only be found outside in the game. But you have all the rest of these ready to go in your base. So the other thing most people want their base for is teleportation. So to go set up your teleportation, go over again to these first windows, find Teleport. So there are lots of different kinds of telepads now. You used to only be able to use this big bulky one, and he only went to 4 places. But now all of the teleporters go to 10 destinations each. So 4 teleporters will cover every single destination in the game. Each of these types of teleporters, like these techs, teleporters, they will only take tech beacons. And I put this up, you see it light up. That means that's attached. If I want to make sure it's attached to that beacon, I click on the beacon, go over here to the window, information, it says it's attached to the Vanguard portal. I click on that, it takes me to the Vanguard portal. If I look under the auxiliary tab, it tells me I have an Atlas Park beacon attached to this portal. There are lots of different types of these portals. There's the interdimensional shard, which is one of my favorites because it hides in things so nicely. Some people will put it even inside of a door and use it as a doorway to go to the next section using their in-base teleporters. For instance, these teleporters at the end of the section, Aleph Point, you see this light up, so it's on this section. And maybe I would just change that attachment to the floor and sink that down in the floor so you can't see it. But it's still there, it's still attached to the beacon. And then if I want to attach that to, say, a door, I would go over, I'm just going to go over to the doors and windows and find a door, and then I would put it here. You see that box for the beacon is you put it right around the door handle, and now when I put my hand on the door handle, the box will light up and I will be able to access the portal to go somewhere. Going back to the tech workshop, or tech teleport rather, actually right next to the tech teleport is teleport points, and this one is I've got the Aleph Point. Remember, I've got Aleph Point attached to it, so I'm going to get the Aleph Point. And now if I clicked on this teleporter and clicked on Aleph Point as a destination, it would take me to wherever I have set this point up, whether it's across the base or it's outside of the base, to say above or below the base, or it's to another level within the base, or just on the other side of a door. They make very handy ways to travel inside of your own base and get around the fact that we don't have doors that open and close. But a lot of times I like to just use this interdimensional shard here and put it inside of something else, maybe a car or a helicopter. So I'm with car option here, put that there, and now I've got a glowy car, or I can sink that down a bit. Could even bring it a little bit forward, and now if I can mouse over that box, it'll pop up and show me the destinations. So that would be how you set up your teleporters. The only thing you have to keep in mind with your teleporters is if you have a tech type teleporter, you can only use tech type beacons. If you have an arcane teleporter, such as your magical portal, then it's going to take your arcane type beacons. And notice this is not lighting up. It won't attach to that. It'll only attach to the magical portal. And you can have your beacons up on a wall or up on a post if you want to attach them by surface. Or you can, like I did with this one, bury it down underneath something or inside of something so that you just have the portal showing and not the beacons. Now if you do that, you're going to have to identify your portal with something like a word indicating what kinds of destinations that portal is going to. So that's basically how you set up your base to work for you. You have your transportation in and out of your base to other zones and within your own base. You have your medical, you have your workshop, you have your access to missions. And now I'm going to show you what this might look like in other bases. Stay tuned for the next video, base design. Thanks!